What is happening, everybody? Full disclosure, Mac just got back from his piss break. What's up,
Oh,
Mac?
you went live on that? Oh, you jackass. Damn it. I was trying to see, what did you not do a countdown? Is that what you did? Shatheed. Such an asshole. Hey, guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Battle Bros podcast. I'm Mac, and I have this walnut-sized bladder. How's it going? Asshole. So this is what happens when you know each other for, going on freaking, 20 years, and you just bust balls and rib each other as much as you can. So
10-4.
Yeah, dick. Anyway, if you're new to the program, welcome. If you're coming back to the show, welcome. We appreciate you coming back to check us out. This is the Battle Bros podcast. We are live every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm joined by my very good friend over this way, Alamo, and I am Mac. And this is something we have been doing since, when did we start doing this last year? It was like mid-year?
I don't remember. I think it was like July.
I want to say it was July. Let me adjust my camera.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was July.
Yeah, so July. So we get on here and talk about... Okay, I don't speak Carney, so I'm sorry. We get on here every Friday night, and we talk about veteran-related issues and, just to kind of, reach that community out there that, needs as much help as they can get sometimes. And other times there are, some strong SOBs, and, we just want to help to unify the veteran community and show them that, by sticking together, we can accomplish anything, and there is no challenge that we can't overcome. So that is basically our story in a nutshell, which is also the same size as my bladder. So something new we started doing this year. Okay, we're going to stop making references to that. So no more anatomical references because, we don't want to get flagged by YouTube community standards. So anyway, something new we started doing this year for this season, is that we are doing what we call our veteran interview panel, our V.I.P.
Damn right, baby. This
is installment number 2. Last week, we interviewed our first veteran, our friend Brent Lee, who is a veteran of the Marine Corps. He told us his story about how he got in, what his experience was like in the service, and getting out after that. So we're going to do quite a few of these, and we're going to do another one starting right now. So we're doing our second installment of the veteran interview panel. We have another wonderful guest on, a friend of Alamo's and myself. We've known this gentleman, Greg, for a number of years now. We have some experience working in the professional sector together. And he's got a great he's got a great story, and we think it's worth sharing. So what do you say, Alamo, that we bring him on here and get the party started? So
let's do it, my man.
If you would please welcome Greg is going to come on the show now. Hey, there he is. What's up, man?
Dizzles.
Greg, welcome to the podcast there, my man.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We appreciate you taking the time on a Friday night. You could probably be doing something else. I know you're a big hockey fan. So is there a game on tonight?
No idea. My wife would know. She's probably curled up with all of the players on the couch right now, looking at their Instagrams collectively.
Gotcha. Nice. In the middle, in the middle of like a 11 game like away streak, like a 11 game stretch where they're all away from.
I'm familiar, probably because we haven't gone to any lately, and I just see her like on the phone, like, oh, Vinny's suit tonight. Oh man.
What a team to be involved with, man. I mean, that's a great organization.
So it's incredible. It's a wonderful organization, and honestly, like that organization, they have all kinds of spotlights. They do give back to veterans as well. We've been to a few games. Last year, we went to one of the Stanley Cup Finals games. Actually, speaking of vets, they have an Air Force veteran sings the national anthem every year.
Yes, I've seen her, and she's fantastic. She's actually really good.
Tremendous.
It's tremendous of talent. It's so wonderful.
Tremendous.
It's very
just
big,
like her.
Huge.
Never mind. Shit.
All right, listen, man. We're 5 minutes into the podcast here, Alamo. Let's keep this shit on the rails until we get later on. Later on, we can start to get loose and widen the turn.
Look, the country is not doing good. Okay, it's tremendous.
just tremendous waste of time. Okay.
Thank you,
Just-
Mr. President, and you're missing
President
your
Biden.
glorious hairpiece. So, anyway, let's get on to it. So, like we said, we got Greg on. We're going to do our second installment of the veterans interview panel. So, what do you say, guys? We hit the ground running and kick this son of a bitch off. So,
Yeah, buddy.
all right. So, Greg, tell us a little bit about where you grew up, where you're from originally, all that kind of stuff. We're going to start chronologically and just kind of sweep all the way through this.
So my name is Greg Mouradian. Born and raised in Brandon, Florida. I know that's like, not a big to do, but it used to be a small town, right? It still is if you still run in the circles that you graduated with.
But it's not getting smaller. It's actually like filling up quite fast because
it seems like every corner here, apartment complex, car wash. But that's Florida. So I was basically born and raised here, local kid. Went to the local schools, and had a very, very good upbringing. Mom and dad were super, super supportive, super loving, super encouraging to my brother and I. Couldn't have asked for a better, more stable environment in the home.
Good stuff.
Hell yeah, man.
How would you describe yourself when you were young? I mean, were you outdoorsy, athletic?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a good question. Outdoorsy to say the least. So my, it's kind of back in the golden age where your parents kick you out until the street lights come on. But we didn't have street lights. We lived on a dead end street. Which I will say that, living on a dead end street kind of stunted my mental growth because I still to this day will get lost in subdivisions.
Yeah.
One way in and one way out on my street that I grew up on is about all I'm good for. And now I live like in a loop. So if I do get lost, I could just go around again or the other way. No, I mean, as a kid, I have a younger brother and he was like more certainly outgoing, loved to tell stories. Whereas I was a very old soul. I was hanging out with my dad. We would go fishing. We were in Boy Scouts. They were like my parents were like the Cub den leaders. So we were always outside, always camping, fishing, and living that kind of life. And it was a wonderful time to be in Florida too, because you could do anything outside. Like I said earlier, fishing is a big passion of mine, but riding dirt bikes or just playing football or tag with the neighborhood kids.
And you bring up a good point too about how there's just so much development now because let's face it, you live like not even a mile from my house. Like we're not that far,
right?
Exactly. It used to be, yeah. And if you think about like over where HCC is off of Falkenberg.
Oh yeah.
That whole area back there used to just be like people would go back in there and like you'd park your car and you'd go in there with your girlfriend or boyfriend and make out or you go in there and ride dirt bikes and stuff like that. You just don't do that anymore,
That area was still being developed back in like 2009.
What's wild
exponential
is you see it and you go out there and it was interesting because and I'm sure we'll jump back to this, but in the transition out of the military, we were looking at this subdivision. It's like, oh my God, they ripped out this cow pasture. Oh my God, those houses are pretty nice. Oh my God, we really need to go check them out. So it is, it's a double-edged sword.
It's so nice. It doesn't even have that cow patty smell. Yeah.
Right? It's a double-edged sword being, especially like a local and a native. While we welcome a certain amount of growth, we dissuade more growth and
the urban sprawl.
Right.
Yeah.
That, small town feel that we grew up with.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a few years ago, everybody was like, dude, we're getting a freaking Bass Pro.
Yeah.
That's awesome. and it was crazy, and it's like, okay, that's cool. But then you're like, it takes 30 minutes to go from 60 and Interstate 75 to get out to Valrico, staying on 60. It like takes a solid 30 minutes on a Friday afternoon. It's like ridiculous.
It never used to be that long.
No,
what's
man.
funny is
it used to be like a 10-minute drive.
Yeah, we'll be riding around. And it's like Sunday morning, and we'll be maybe going to church or something. But it's like maybe 10 cars on the road. Like, do you remember when it used to be like this? Like
all
yes,
the time.
I do remember.
See, and it's funny now, and we'll get back on this interview in just a second, but one last thing I wanted to say, it's like when my dad was alive, when I was younger, we used to go, my mom and my dad both grew up in Zephyr Hills up in Pasco County.
Okay.
So like they would go and we would drive around with my grandparents, well, my grandfather especially, like we should drive around and just kind of, and he was kind of like what you call one of those social observationists. Like he would always just go out and like just watch people and people watch, but not in the creepy connotation it's got nowadays.
Right.
But like just kind of, and he would go and you like look at all the buildings and businesses, like, oh, remember that used to be this and that used to be that. It was like a little 5 and dime, and this was, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm getting there myself. I'm like, oh,
right, you find yourself doing it.
Dude, you go over off of the road that Bass Pro is on, and they got a couple hotels. Like, do you remember when freaking Celebration Station used to be here, man? It's like, holy shit.
Yep.
It's like
the bumper boats, the go-karts. Dude,
yeah.
It was really funny. Just a real quick one.
Ooh, didn't Celebration Station get taken down in like 2009? I just thought of that. Jesus Christ.
Right by the Circuit City.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The Circuit City ends up becoming like that Spirit of Halloween store every Halloween and stuff.
Oh.
So I went into a gas station, and I knew that it was this other gas station like the previous week. So I walk in, I was like, and I went up to the cashier. I had like a Monster, maybe, whatever. Hey, when did this become a 7-Eleven? And the dude was like, it's always been a 7-Eleven. No, it hasn't. He's like, it's been like this, like literally 3 days. He's like, no. I've lived here for 2 years. I would know. It's like, come on, bro.
And that's when you hope you got that nice piece of evidence. So why does my receipt from 3 days ago say Circle K there?
Right. There's the racetrack on 60.
Oh, there you go.
It's not
yeah. Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's right over there by the GFS.
So much
right
has
next to
changed, man.
Well, and I actually know the story behind that. So it's because racetrack, apparently, they're kind of consolidating a lot of their stores into these bigger stores. They're building the one right there on Kings and Lumsden.
Yep.
That big one that they haven't opened yet. It's taking a while because they're working on the sewer stuff or whatever. Anyway, let's get back on track. So,
yeah. So, freaking.
Go ahead, Macho.
All right. So, cool. When did you first consider joining?
I do not think that there was a time that I knew I wouldn't serve.
Yeah, right on.
I knew, I've got like every year for Halloween, I was a soldier. Nearly every day I was in fatigues growing up, and my mom had to wash them over and over and over and over and over again. Like, before I started school, that's all I wore was camis. And
especially once they're broken in, they're freaking comfortable.
Right?
Hell yeah.
They're like jammies, man. It's awesome.
Hell yeah.
So I think that I always knew that I was going to serve. It's just I wasn't sure in what capacity until I got a little bit older. And obviously, 9/11 certainly played a big part in solidifying that I wanted to go infantry. But even my whole life, I would say I knew that I was going to be a soldier or at least serve in some capacity.
Got it.
I got you. So you kind of answered the next couple of little bullet points on our little thing here. So did you, like, if you wouldn't have gotten infantry, what would have been like a good second?
Tremendous question. And this is the funny part, or not even so funny, but my father, and you had mentioned your father passed away, so I'm sorry, I wasn't aware. My father passed away way too early, but he was staunchly against infantry. He knew that I always wanted to serve as well, but because of where he came from, in the old country, being in the Middle East, obviously it still is today, but he grew up in Syria, war-torn nation, again, still is. But he wanted to always dissuade me against going into the service and pursuing college. And that's honorable, that's noble. He wanted to provide for me so I could go to school and provide for my family more than he could for his. So I understand that, but I was always very into the notion of serving. So when he was on his way out, he knew he was sick, he knew he was going. He finally kind of just broke and said, you know what? If you're going to serve, use your brain and do something other than infantry. So I started talking to the Navy, took the ASVAB, and when I took the ASVAB, I scored really high, and the Navy was writing up a contract for Navy News. So
okay,
yeah, I mean that was
so you would have been like a mass media specialist or something along those lines, I think.
Well, on a sub, working on whatever they do on like Navy nuclear submarines and nuclear power plants.
Okay.
But
there's only like 5 or 6 MOSs that are on a sub, but I got you.
Yeah. So I took that and I was thinking about going that route. My dad passed away, and then so how long is the term of enlistment for being a naval nuclear operator, whatever they are? I don't know. And they're like 6 years. No. Basically, I mean, at that point, I was in and out of college like a typical shithead. But I spent my early or late teens, early 20s in college, and I knew that I had sort of an expiration to when I could serve and could do everything that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So the Navy nuclear option, while it probably would have been a lot more rewarding long term as far as like career placement, I knew that 6 years in the fleet was not what I wanted to do. 2 years in school, 4 years in the fleet. So then I started looking around. I was like, what is the shortest enlistment I can take? And they're like, Army infantry, buddy. I was like, hell yeah, sign me up, Sarge.
Can you imagine 6 years of being haze gray and underway?
Right. Nope. And what's funny is I spent about 6 years in the Army, and
it's funny how things work out. So just for a little bit of commentary, it's like, I don't know about you, Alamo, but like I know when I took my ASVAB, and I'm not saying this, toot my own horn and stuff, but like they're like, dude, you scored high enough, you can do anything you want. I'm like, let me try this infantry thing, and they're all probably just in there going, sucker, It's just like dumbass. But it's people. It's like it's one of two trains of thought. Like you go in there to have that experience, or you're just thinking like once you get a real job,
right? Like, I think you're. I think that you could not have said that better. There's the cats that show up to basic, and they're like, infantry, let's go. And then there's the dudes that are like, what am I doing?
So
last week, what the hell am I doing here?
Go ahead, go ahead, Alamo.
No, I was gonna say I would say like when I actually I think I qualified for like at least 90 plus jobs. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was in like the high 90s. And I mean, honestly, I just wanted to be a fucking fighter. That's really all I wanted to do. I wanted to freaking go. And
how would you describe yourself in one word? A sadist? Infantry is the way to go.
I like to clean.
But dude, I'm gonna tell you a story, and I just want to see your reaction. You might have heard this listening to the show, but there was this kid. I want to say his name. We called him. His name was like Woody or something. Kind of a shorter guy, ginger, red hair, and he was from Arkansas. Okay, now I'm not making fun. We all called him Chucky because when he got angry, he would look like a little Chucky doll, like all that crazy shit. Let me take a minute to compose myself. This gentleman joined the Army infantry because he thought he was going to join the Army and take care of babies. No. I'm not making that up, folks.
But you know what? I think along those lines, there's the dudes that show up that, again, the flip side of the coin, right? They want to be there.
Is this one of the guys that went AWOL?
But then they're the dudes that have no – maybe they have a place in the military, and I'm not saying that they don't. maybe not the infantry, right? Maybe it wasn't the appropriate place for them. And, the recruiter met his quota that month, but shame on them, right?
Yeah. So you pretty much knew that it was either infantry or nothing.
Yeah. So, and what's interesting is I would have fights, dude. Fights with my dad. Like, and this is wild, but like, I would say, hey, I want to go. Like, I know that I want to be infantry. I know I want to go like airborne, ranger, SF. I want to do that, Dad. Like, sign off. Let me go.
I want to be high speed.
Yeah, high speed. But what's wild is that my dad worked at a body shop, so uneducated but highly skilled. He came from the old country, and he was an auto body man. Right, he just fixed cars. So there was this dude, Frank, and he was, a homeless vet that would come to the shop and he would sweep up, and all that he would get is like $5, and like my dad would give him some $5. Or my dad's actually like, he would hire him, bring him to the house, set him up. And we have like a camper from when we were in Cub Scouts. Like you put him in the camper for a while, do some odd jobs around the house just to get this guy like off the streets for a while, do some work.
That's awesome.
But the guy was like SF in Vietnam, and just unfortunately in his generation just came back without a whole lot of help. So he just went off the grid, and he wanted to be off the grid. As long as he had beer and cigarette money, he was cool. So my dad, and I would tell my dad, like, look, I want to be SF. I want to be this or that. And he's like, look at Frank.
Like that? Yeah. Not you, Alamo. Sorry, I'm not trying to point to you, but I'm like.
And it was hard, right? Because on one hand, like, I knew that Frank had done a whole lot for the country, and he probably lost his mind doing it or didn't get the help that he needed.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I wanted to do. So it was a hard sell, to say the least. But then my dad, unfortunately, passed away, and that's when I took the opportunity to go, because I didn't. The relationship I had with my father was such that I didn't want to let him down. So I was in college while he was alive.
I got you. No, I can understand that. Yeah.
When you left for like basic and whatnot, was there like anything that you thought of that like you kind of like had like were nervous about or anything like that or whatever? Like, can you think of anything that off the top of your head?
Sure. So I think nervous of the unknown, and everybody gets that. So everybody, I think, gets there, and like it's a reality shot. Even if you had like friends or family members, and I had friends that obviously were in, but it's still a culture shock because now you're into this environment, and it's a wholly different change. Was I nervous? No, because I was a little bit older. I wasn't like 17, 18 going into basic. I was already in realistically my mid-20s by the time that I went in.
And that's a very valid point too, because I know somebody that went in their late 20s, almost into their 30s,
right? And
she joined, and from what I've heard from this person's brother, he was like, she's smart, like getting in, because I mean, let's face it, you imagine the majority of those guys going to infantry school and then on to airborne and then ranger. They're all freaking 18 to 21 years old, think they can just go out and grab the world by the nuts and say, I'm going to make you my bitch. And it's like,
no.
Not so much.
That, I was like, obviously the older kid in basic. I certainly wasn't as fast of a runner as the 18-year-old kids, but, in basic, that doesn't necessarily matter. But as far as being nervous about anything, I truly wasn't. It was just a little bit of a culture shock that I was able to adapt probably easier than others because of my age.
Okay.
No. I think when it comes to like when you're older, I think you could like take a lot more. Like
certainly you have more life under your belt. You've been around. You've seen life. You've had your heart broken. You've seen death. So there are those experiences that mold humans, and I had already had several of those fortifying moments that I knew myself a little bit more than an 18-year-old kid would have.
Fortifying moments. I'm going to write that down. We're going to use that. Fortifying moments. That's good shit. No, I like that.
The callousing of the mind.
There you go.
Right? Yeah.
Ooh, look at you with your SAT fucking words. Good job, man.
That's a 25-cent word.
So when did you leave for basic? And when you went to basic, did you have an airborne contract?
All right. So I left. I joined the DEP in 2010, and then
DEP program
left. And I only joined DEP honestly because this is morose, but my father was again on his way out. Unfortunately, it's like this is what I want to do, but I can't do it yet. So joined the DEP 2010, and then left in April of 11. And then again, what is the shortest enlistment? Regular Army infantry, 3 years, 14 weeks, right? And then at the end of basic,
got to make up that 14 weeks from basic. That's bullshit.
Exactly. Basic, all the drill sergeants were like, "Hey, we've got 5 airborne, 5 ranger, 5 SF. Who wants to go where?" And I was like, "Well, fuck it, I'll go airborne. That'd be cool." And that's one of those pivotal times when I wish I had a little bit more guidance, and because everybody that goes SF or Ranger, you shoot for the stars. If you don't make it, you land on the moon, or shoot for the moon, land the star, whatever that is. So everybody that gets a SF or Ranger contract goes to airborne, right? So had I had a little bit more guidance, I probably would have just went that way initially. And I went and just stood in like the little group of kids that wanted to go airborne and went. And then I talked to my drill sergeant English, who actually Facebook friend, awesome dude. And he's like, you know what? You're probably just gonna be a 5-jump chump. You're not gonna be in an airborne unit. Just go. It'll be fine. You're just getting it as a laid out on Bragg. Going to Bragg. So, no, I had orders to go to Carson out of basic. And that would have been cool, especially I've heard it's like a sportsman's paradise, fishing, hunting,
Colorado, yeah,
hiking.
I've heard
it's tremendous.
I'm not sure, but I think that's where they filmed the original Red Dawn movie. Was filmed at Fort Carson,
Colorado.
I think. I'm not 100% certain.
Well, everything to the point. Did I have a contract? No, but everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, sure.
My wife and I were dating back then, and had I gone to Carson, probably wouldn't have worked out, right? So Bragg wasn't so bad.
I hear a lot of from a lot of different people that Bragg
mixed bag on the commentary about Bragg.
Yeah. So I say it wasn't that bad, but it was terrible.
I've heard Bragg is good for your career.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Bragg is the center of the universe. If you ask anybody in the airborne community, man,
that's true.
But what was wild is that we all endured it together. Everybody that was there. Sure. My wife was in the healthcare field, so she had tons of really, really made and had tons of really good friends, and a lot of them were spouses, so they all just knew and they were with it, and they such a cohesive bond, even amongst spouses that I remember when I was deployed, she would be taken care of. And then when other spouses were deployed, we would take care of.
And you're kind of returning the favor.
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. Whether it be watching the kids, watching the dogs, cooking, whatever. Just
that whole post family comes together and just.
Oh, yeah. It was awesome. It was awesome.
So when you got to Bragg, what was your first unit that you got to? What kind of unit? Did you end up in one of the PIRs or the airborne regiments? Or
So good question. Interestingly enough, when I got to Bragg. In reception, I went to 473 Cav. So it was a part of what's called 4th Brigade Combat Team. So Bragg had 4 of them back then. And the 4th, if you wanted to bang, 4th was where you wanted to be. 4th Brigade rules. So I was in 473 Cav as an infantry kid. And I went in and, maybe somebody's looking out for me, maybe not. I was dealt a pretty cool hand. I went into 473 Cav, and it was a part of their headquarters platoon, like a scout platoon.
Headquarters boys.
Yeah, it was wicked cool. We got actually dirt bikes. We got just whatever kind of. Did we use a dirt bike? No. But
did we have it available?
We had them.
For sure.
It was cool. I mean, His Majesty wanted to use us like CAG, dude. I had a great
for the civilians listening at home. His Majesty is parlance for the Sergeant Major. So if you hear that reference, that's what we're referring to. So
indeed,
yeah. So I ended up in 473 Cav. Did the train up for the deployment, and it was like, if you get to the unit, and you guys know, you get to the unit, and you're like, you don't have a whole lot of expectations because you don't know anybody and you don't know a damn thing.
Right.
So for me showing up, it's like, okay, guys, what are we doing? And they're like, well, start doing push-ups until we deploy in a couple of weeks, retard. So.
So let me ask you. Let me interject and ask you a question. So
yeah, of course. I've
heard, as Alamo and I have both said, we've heard this from several different people about, Bragg and whatnot. So what was the culture like? I know the unit has a pretty steeped historical culture with a lot of things. I mean, and, kind of, being the new guy, you're going to be the victim of the quote unquote fuck games when, coming to a new unit and stuff. But what was the culture like?
Go get a box of grid squares.
Right. There was a whole lot of that. There was a whole lot of like, hey, you better have this pamphlet with you and study it. If you don't know it in 3 minutes, you're doing push-ups. You're getting scuffed up. But to talk about a unit that is steeped in history, it's the 82nd. And you knew, like, your unit's history, you had to know your unit's history, all of the Medal of Honor recipients, the notable wars and battlegrounds that they fought in. So almost in retrospect, almost to a fault, because we were so steeped in history. My opinion while I was there is like, why can't we look forward and make a name for ourselves going forward, right? Like, why can't we, like, granted, what we did was amazing, but that was like 80 years ago. But now I see it just enforces that much more discipline to have to know that information and to care about it and be the torchbearer of that. Now, when we did go down range, part of that history shined where we made a name for ourselves, and the locals started calling us the Circle Square Tribe. So for your audience,
nice.
I've got a patch, right?
Circle Square Tribe.
So they called us the Circle Square Tribe because that's what our patch looked like to them. So when we walked into the village, they knew what time it was because we didn't put up with a whole lot, But it was
the Oath Keepers and the standard I said the Circle Square Tribe, the standard bearers of fuck around and find out. So
right. That is exactly correct. But yeah, getting to the unit, man, it was like we trained up for a few months and then rolled out. But I knew in very short order, I was in the 4th Brigade and we were going to go bang, and it was going to be cool.
So how many deployments did you end up doing with 473?
One.
Just one. Okay.
Just one. And I wish I had done more, but it folded. So 473 and 4th Brigade ended up folding. And before the show, Alamo, you were talking about a reflag, and so I was right there with you, dude. So around that time after my first deployment, and that was again a cavalry unit. It was 473, part of 4th Brigade combat team. That unit folded, and I went to 1508, which was cool because I knew some dudes that I went to basic with, and they were in 1508, and I got into the same company as a couple of kids that I went to basic with, and still friends to this day. Still tremendous friends to this day with those guys in One Fury. So they One Fury, 1508, really class act group of guys. Actually drinking a 1508 glass. All right.
Nice.
I might even drink there. But that's another unit that you show up as a brand new private, and you must learn the history of 1508 because it was so esteemed in who they are and how they carried themselves.
Yeah.
Was there a little bit of a difference since you had already been in the division and you were just coming over from a different unit versus somebody like starting like this is your first duty station straight up fresh from the jump of finishing airborne school?
That's an awesome question. And I wish I could lie to you. It was great. It was a smooth transition, but it was not. I mean, I was a new guy in the new place, so I remember
you were new to them,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I already CIB, Purple Heart. I was like plenty of gunfights, but new to them is right. So I remember like my first week there was a DUI.
Right. And I already know where this is going.
Formation. Everybody like toe the line, get back here right now because there was a DUI, right? So that was like, all right, this sucks. But then like, you stand tall in front of the man, like first sergeant and the CO, like all you new guys, blah, blah, blah. It was crappy because they really threw the book at all the new guys. But then I was like, well, but I've got one of these too, like all you guys. I'm not that new, right? But then the next weekend, one of their cats caught a Dewey, and it was like, haha. See, it happens to all of us, not just the new guys. So, I mean, yeah,
that kind of like that warped sense of keeping the standards. Yeah, it's like
we're gonna
pound the new guy.
Oh,
it's us. Oh, never mind.
I'm Sergeant Dilly.
Dude, I mean, yeah, but we all saw it, right? So that's kind of the underbelly of what happens, right? So you're in this super structured organization, and then you go across the world and you see some wonderful and terrible things. You get back and you have a few drinks that can ruin your career. Yeah. So it was a challenge for everybody, and everybody took it out in their own different ways.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, kind of to tap the brakes and kind of back up a little bit. You did mention Purple Heart. So you've got you got a Purple Heart when you were with 473 on your deployment.
Yeah. So I was honestly grazed, right? So I was in a gun truck, and it was a complex ambush. Got hit with an RPG. So in a gun truck, in a MAT V, super armored, super protected, like a little bit of scratches here and there, and I perfed my eardrums. Got into a pretty decent firefight with the dudes that RPG'd us.
Still got that ringing in your ears from time to time, huh?
It's my best friend that never goes away, man. But we stayed in the aid station for a few days, low light, low noise, just to, be cool. And it was myself, my buddy Wild in the passenger seat, and Leon in the driver's seat. Both those dudes were like knocked unconscious immediately. And like I look down, and like smoke is filling the cab. These dudes are like slumped over. I'm like, oh boy, this is not good. So I kicked them in the heads, wake them up, and then it was go time, right? And so it was wild because in the fog of war, my buddy Wild was a saw gunner. So I was on the 50 up top, started trying to engage dudes that just shot at us. 50 goes down because the turret's broken. So I've got like a musket, for lack of better terms. I've got like a single shot 50 cal, like clunk, clunk, just trying to rock these dudes and send fire and send hate back the other way. And it did not work at all. So I grabbed Wild's saw, started laying some hate down with that, and then handed back to him. And this was probably the dumbest thing that Wild could have done. But again, fog of war, just woke up to a hellacious boom and headache. This dude gets out of the truck with a 249 and just death blossoms the entire truck. Just
Death Blossom. Fantastic movie reference, dude.
It
so
was
good.
It was awesome. And it's like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Time out real quick. For the folks that don't know what a Death Blossom is, you're missing out. 1, 2, go watch a movie called The Last Starfighter. It's an old sci-fi movie from like 80s, 90s. It's the first movie to ever use CGI. That's how I know that. But it was like one of my favorite movies as a kid. Death Blossom. You'll get it. It'll make sense. And continue.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, after that, dark room for a couple of days, dark, quiet room in the aid station, and we were just back out again. But again, I was super, super lucky because it could have been so much worse. So, I mean, you guys know, could have been worse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Way worse.
Okay, so getting back on track, you said that the unit you were with, 473, the whole brigade folded, and they folded up flags and stuff, and then you went to 508. Correct. How many times did you deploy with 1508?
So I deployed one more time with those dudes, and then after that, shortly after that, I injured my back, and then that was about it for me. So I did 2 deployments in total. A little bit better than a year and a half overseas, and that's when like the jumping took its toll on me, because I came in again as an older dude and as also like a bigger dude. I injured my back, and it sucks, right? So I was trying to put up a OCS packet. So in between deployments, I had finished my bachelor's degree, and for me, it really meant a lot that I was going to go a little bit further try to go a little bit further than I did. So my little bit of background story, my father-in-law was also in, his father was in, my wife's grandfather was in on the mother's side. So there's a steep military history on her side as well. And for me, I was in college, but then wanted to get to the fight before the fight wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a huge deal to try and better myself so I could become an officer. I finished schooling while I was in between those 2 deployments. And that was also a huge push from my first squad leader, who's a tremendous leader in the organization, and I really looked up to him, and I needed him when he was around me, or I was around him, I should say. So I wanted to be an officer. So the challenge was sending up an OCS packet, had a bad jump, blew my back out, and that kind of curtailed my career from there.
Gotcha.
Out of curiosity, were both your deployments Iraq or Afghanistan?
Afghanistan.
Or both? Yep. Both were Afghanistan. Got it.
Yeah. So I know like a lot of guys in our generation that definitely joined shortly after high school. They went to Iraq, and that's a party that I missed out on. Yeah. I mean, you guys, right? So
I joined after high school, but I went to Afghanistan.
He went to the ass crack.
Yeah. Dude, Afghanistan, beautiful country. I kind of wish I would have made it over to Iraq sometimes, and some of that kind of house-to-house kinetic fight versus like village to village, but it was still cool, pretty action-packed.
Yeah. Urban areas was something else, man. It was different. Because it was mostly urban in those places, even in the shitholes.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the thing with like Afghanistan. It looked like everything was a shithole, but beautiful country, beautiful parts of the country, and it still kind of calls you back, right? And especially if you've been there, you meet really cool dudes, and you see like the best and the worst of humankind, right?
Yes, dude. You know,
called back to it.
It's so funny. I was having you hit on a couple of points a few minutes ago, Greg. We were sitting around the dinner table tonight. My daughter was here. We were having talk about stuff, and went all over the place. But we ended up talking about like just people. And it might not have been tonight, but it might have been the previous night. But she was like, "What was Afghanistan like?" And I'm like, "What part? You need to kind of go a little bit more." She's like, "Well, what's the country like?" I'm like, "It's the most gorgeous country. Like, seriously, it's just beautiful. Like the scenery there is just like you would just wake up, and where we were up in to the west of Mez, and we were just to the north of the Alborz mountain range. Like you'd wake up and just see the sun coming up over the horizon, and it was just like so many colors in the sky.
Yeah.
And like, I remember seeing something on like, I think it was on the news one time, or it was like PBS or something, but like they have this flight once a year. It's a commercial flight that goes, I think, from Japan out to Iwo Jima. So like, it's just filled with all these old school, like Marine vets and like all these old school guys. I'm just like, wow. And she asked me, she's like, would you go back? I'm like, if it was like maybe 20 years down the road and said certain assholes weren't fucking things up for everybody else over there, and it was as maybe like the same as going to Germany or Italy. Oh fuck yeah, I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a huge thing. Is I would love to, but you got to think like how many, and you get into country and there you have the brief like. The Soviets back in the day laid out thousands and thousands of mines. So it's like, could you imagine us like in 50 years, like on a walker, like, oh my God, well, this is beautiful. This is a wonderful country. I remember being here, and then
boom.
So
if anything, just for the food. I mean, the cuisine over there was the foot bread and the lamb. Oh my.
And then you lose 20 pounds in the next couple days. The good old days, right?
Hey, can I get the little local fare without the side of dysentery? That'd be great.
Bro, I remember, okay, so my first squad leader. So I remember we were like rolling down this street and like busy marketplace. And of course we're like condition red, like hot, because we're just in country. And this dude, of course, E6 had a few under his belt. He's like, stop the convoy. Oh shit, we're gonna go hot. This is it. We're ready to rock, Sarge.
It's about to go down.
I was like, who's got $1? It's like, what? Gets out of the truck, sees this dude making bread, comes back with like a loaf.
Oh, dude, that bread was the shit, man.
Right? And it's like, oh my gosh, we were like ready to commit murder.
Huh?
Bread? That's
bread?
Good.
No, but so like
when bread was always the best, man. Especially like if you get like that flat bread, that bread that they put it in that freaking weird oven thing that they just pat it to the fucking side of the thing. Yeah.
So there was a couple of times where we had to go, like they were doing elections while we were over there, because I was over there from July 05 to July 06.
No shit.
So they
did elections in Iraq around the time that I was there too.
Yeah. So we were doing presence patrols in the city of Mazar-e Sharif. And like you'd be out there like early as crap in the morning before most of the locals were up and moving around and stuff. And you would have those little street vendors, and you would stop and you would just be sitting there I'd be behind the 240. I'm just like, oh fuck, where is it? Like you could just smell it. And it was just it was the foot bread, and it was them cooking the lamb. Oh my God. I would.
And you know what? For both of you guys, that must have been an awesome time to be downrange, because like you got to think how remarkable of a time would it have been in any country's history to go become a democracy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like that's huge that you guys were there when it happened.
And it's funny too, because like I think about it this way, but like at that point in time, women, I'm going to say this, in Afghanistan, it was probably far more strict on the women.
Sure.
Just because I think Iraq because of the rule of Saddam, Iraq was just a little bit more westernized, not
Right.
by much, but just a tad bit more westernized.
Sure.
But the women there had zero freaking voting rights.
No, nothing.
Yeah, they had
Fucking
zero
horrible.
freaking voting rights. And I was there when we had an election where they were actually voting for their next president, if I remember correctly. And we were pulling security for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there were women walking in there with their kids, coming with their voting cards, and then they right into the voters box. I was like, yeah,
That's great. That's
pretty fucking cool.
time, you know, and I think that those types of experiences we will carry with us for the rest of our days. And what really people who haven't served, and what's also so beautiful about having an all volunteer military is you decided and took it upon your own volition to go be there. And fortunately you saw, suffrage, right? Women's suffrage take place. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And to come full circle about the comment I was making, talking about the people, I was telling my daughter, I was like, while I was there, they used to have to wear burqas. So like the only thing you would see is this right here. I said, and so we're sitting at a polling center, and there's women walking around, and they would remove their headgear, and they would just. And I told my daughter, I said, all women are beautiful in their own right. I said, but these women were just
beautiful.
It was amazing. Like it was beautiful naturally, their natural beauty.
Yeah.
But just also, it was beautiful to see them going, "Hey, Taliban, guess what? Fuck you," kind of shit. Just like pulling that off, and just being like,
take back their country. And unfortunately, and I'm sure, because I read the brief, we won't get too far into this.
Get too far into the weeds. We can say stuff, but we can't get too far.
It's all good.
It.
Right.
But we got a good vibe going, man.
It's shameful what's happened lately to those folks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. Like when ISIS took over Iraq for me,
mm-hmm.
I was beyond pissed.
Oh yeah, it's a kick in the pants. It's not right.
No.
Yeah. So okay, you mentioned you hurt your back on a jump. So how soon did it take for you to start the transition process out? I know there's usually that to see like a medical staff or whatnot.
Yeah.
And they pretty much, at that point it was decided, hey, you're going to be done. Did you end up getting medically retired?
So that's a great question. And I'll tell you this way. The very short answer to that is I was medically discharged, washed out, couldn't do my job anymore.
So it was a rather quick transition.
No, painfully long.
Oh, wow.
Really?
So I injured my back, right? And injured my back, went to the aid station after the jump. Actually, like a couple of days after the jump, we got a PT test. And I was very in tune with my body. I knew that like if the max number of push-ups for my age group was 78, I was in the 82nd Airborne Division. I was an asshole. I would do 82 push-ups and get up, walk away. Same thing with sit-ups, right?
That's swagger. Love it.
I'm done, right? So I did my push-ups, got up, cool. Did my sit-ups, something didn't feel quite right. I can't do my 82. Something's weird. Then started the run, and something was very weird. So next day, go to the aid station. Doc checks me out, and he's like, well, your back hurts. Everybody's back hurts. So here's some 800 mgs. Walk it off, right? Drink some water, pull security, face out. But that right there just took a whole, basically a year to really get the care that I needed. And it's unfortunate because, and I'm not going to mention any kind of names here, but it led to an investigation where what should have been done initially was, hey, dude's back's hurt. We need some imagery. That wasn't followed. So if there was an ailment, I had it, whether it was an STD, whether it was a hernia, prostatitis, it was everything but looking at my back. So eventually, and my wife is in the medical field, so eventually got to the point where I was like trying to make dinner one night. I was cutting vegetables. Vividly remember collapsing, fetal position in the kitchen crying because I had herniated discs in my back and I couldn't function anymore.
Shit.
Went to the ER, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, your back's pretty jacked up." So I took that information to my PA and said, "Hey, dude, can we?"
What the fuck, sir? Over.
Right. Can we finally get some more imagery? Can we get some MRIs? And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're pretty messed up. See ya." So
Nothing we can do. Sorry. Bye.
So that was the challenge, and it was really gut wrenching because again, I was desperately trying to become an officer, and circling back, my father-in-law was an officer. His father was an officer. All those dudes were officers. So I wanted to become an officer, sent up the OCS packet, and you can't be on profile. So on my way out, it was pretty painful physically and mentally that I wasn't going to get to where I wanted to be in the service because blew my back out. Had I had received adequate care and attention when I had originally injured myself, probably could have made it out, with a few bulges, and that would be physical therapy and healed. But just wasn't in the cards for me.
See, and the reason I ask these questions, not one just because it's on the list we gave you for the interview questions, so you'd be adequately prepared. But two, a good friend of ours that used to work where we all used to work, went through the same thing. He ended up going on. So normally, like when you come in on a jump, you kind of try to do this thing. He had no crosswind. He ended his jump by just going straight down.
Yeah.
Impacted his back, messed him up really bad. And then it took he had switched over to a teaching position because he was in the 25 career management field, which is communications. Ended up going over to Gordon in Georgia and was in the classroom teaching and stuff. And they tried to get him relieved because of the fact that his back was that messed up. And he went through seeing the PA several rounds and went through physical therapy. And the sergeant major, his majesty was
Majesty.
like, "What the fuck, dude? You can't even do this shit. How are you going to lead soldier?" And it's kind of just, and I'm not saying anything bad because I don't know. I wasn't in any of these units with the lineage, with the history, with that kind of culture. But it just seems like there's a little bit of cultural kind of looseness where this kind of thing can potentially happen, where it's like, "Oh, it's this unit. Suck it up and drive on. Take some fucking motion, drink water."
There's a lot of bravado that goes along with that, right? So your back hurts, everybody's back hurts. Drive on, and a lot of times that is the right answer, but a lot of times there's not, and it's a lot, that causes a lot of really good dudes to get out. If they're seriously injured and they need help. So a quick story on that. I was, again, went to college, so I was pretty book smart, but I had a dude under me that had an absolutely photographic memory. You give him an FM, the next day he'll recite you the FM.
That's awesome.
PMs, dude was socially stupid. But
if he was from Boston, he would have been wicked schmat.
Socially stupid.
But you know what? That makes for a great soldier of the month, right?
Yeah.
I had won a couple of NCO of the month NCO of the quarter boards. So I was taking this cat to a soldier of the quarter board. And for your audience, you basically pit your privates against everybody else's privates to see who has the smartest privates. And this cat knew everything.
Don't read too far into that, folks, by the way.
And so I remember they said, "Hey, Soldier of the Month is going to be in this building at this time." So we went. Early is on time. We were super early. And another His Majesty was walking through the halls of this building and was like, "Hey, what are y'all doing here?" "Hey, Sergeant Major, Soldier of the Month. I'm taking my private over here." He's like, "You're wrong building, Sergeant. What the hell are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, this is our paper. We're here. We're on time. No shit. We're here." And then he looks at my rack and he sees, the Taliban marksmanship badge. And this Joker's got a glass eye, like a glass eye with a Punisher skull. And it's like, how'd you get yours? It's like, you talk about some fucking nuts, dude. Like,
how do you know what goddamn day it is? Like,
no matter what you say,
we're soldiers.
There are some salty dudes that have seen it and done it 10 times harder, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. I mean, that unit's bravado, their history, their lineage is what it is, and there was not a lot of room for mercy for the weak or injured. And unfortunately, I was injured, so just had to get out when I did and how I did.
Yeah. So with the way that it all kind of came to a close, I mean, it was, it's obviously not what you wanted. You probably, you started off doing just the first 3 years, and then you ended up re-enlisting for a second 3-year term, and then now you're talking about dropping an OCS packet. So you were, I imagine you were kind of planning on staying for a while. This is a calling that you had, and for that to all kind of come closing out without you in it, that must have been kind of a hell of a transition going back to civilian life. What was that like for you?
Yeah. Good question. Super difficult. So to your point, I re-enlisted twice. Once for basically a little bit of reprieve so I could go back to school, or just to not be picked on while I finished school as much. Second was for the second deployment, and they were like, hey, look, if you do this one, then we'll send you to OCS. And like, if you do X, we'll give you Y. So there was the dangling carrot. And when the dangling carrot kind of fell off and fell into the mud, I was super butthurt. I was all about going to OCS, and then it was all about the walls are closing in, and I'm going to have to figure something out. So I was married, and then when it kind of came to a head and we needed to figure it out, we were already deep into building this house, right? So I knew I was going to get out. My wife went ahead, came back, started living with her folks to look for a house for us. And she started doing all of the process with that. And I'll say this, if it wasn't for her, I would not, and a strong support system, I wouldn't be where I am certainly today. But to the point, when we were looking for a house, we dealt with a real estate broker. Very good friends with him still today. Awesome guy. And he said, hey, man, what do you – because I had never met him, but I talked on the phone, meet and greet. He had met my wife. And, of course, you meet with a realtor. What are your wants? What are your needs? What's your appetite for a house? And he's like, hey, you've got a great personality, Greg. What do you think that you want to do when you get out of the service? I don't know, man. You tell me. I'm going to be fun employed here in a couple of months. So he said, why don't you become a realtor? You'll make like 6 figures your first year out. And that did not happen. So I needed to find gainful employment, right? But you get out of this super structured organization, you get out of this super structured way of life. And for me, getting out of that super structured way of life and then becoming an independent realtor was the wrong answer. I went just out there. And I was dealing with, obviously, like, PTSD, dealing with some stuff from the war, some latent stuff from the war that I needed addressed. It was affecting our marriage. So I had a time, man. I had a really hard time adjusting to the civilian sector. And even though I had, again, come in to the military as an adult, I still needed quite a bit of help coming out and becoming a well-adjusted member of society.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you kind of, again, we've kind of covered a lot of the bullet point stuff on here. So what would you say have been some of the biggest things that you've taken from your military service and applied to your civilian life or your civilian professional life now?
I think tenacity, dude. Just drive. So like,
Hey.
Hell yeah.
so I think
we'll get to that one.
tenacity is huge, right? So like, early is on time is late. Fucking do the job, and you'll succeed. Right place, right time, right uniform. So
would you kind of say that applies, just to kind of our generation of veterans, like the GWAT veterans? Would you say that we're kind of some tenacious, ornery sons of bitches?
Yeah, I think anybody with a blue cord absolutely is. I think that anybody with a blue cord is. I think that the grunt is an amazing creature, right? You're gonna give it absolutely everything you've got. So that really parlayed into when I told my real estate broker, "Hey man, this isn't for me. Like mentally, I need structure, and I needed to find gainful employment not only for myself, for my mortgage." He totally was cool. He totally understood it, but I excelled, and I found gainful employment with another home builder, and it was just what I needed because I could focus on other people's issues that I was able to help with, and that also like our generation of GWAT vets. Like I will say this, as ornery sons of bitches, as borderline alcoholics, and just pissed off folks, we also care, right? So I would genuinely
sometimes too much,
right? Genuinely empathize with the people that I met and their struggles that they were going with.
Yeah.
So I could help them, and I became better at my job in the home building industry because of it, and I excelled. Caught a couple of lucky breaks, got promoted, and ever since. And I'm not with that company anymore, or necessarily that I'm not in the home building industry anymore, but it's parlayed into a pretty successful career, just showing up, right place, right time, right uniform, with the right attitude, and crushing every day. So I guess if there's a lesson to be learned, is that if you work, you'll be successful. If you're willing to work, if you're willing to put in the hours and sweat equity, you'll be fine. And that's what I kind of tell all my dudes now that are under me, is that we're all in this together. If they need help, I'm there to help them. Because I'm going to, right? I desperately need my guys that are under me to put in a full day's work, sometimes more than a full day's worth of work, for all of us as an organization to succeed. And I think that I've carried that in from my military service.
And I would say also, especially folks that have been in a specified leadership role, especially you being an NCO, taking all those, it's funny, they teach you all this stuff. It's like, oh, wait, troop leading procedures, I can use this in my surveillance. Yeah, just supervise the work, going through all that stuff. So it's kind of nice that carries over.
Crucial.
I was never an NCO by title or rank or whatnot, but I was a team leader, and I was a machine gun team leader. So yeah, a lot of that stuff carried over. So
certainly, I think the ability to lead and the ability, or just setting a good example that dudes want to follow you, is crucial. And I think that there's our generation of vets, and then there's our generation of dudes that didn't raise their right arm, and there's a staunch difference of cats that if you did serve, you get it, and there's a bunch of dudes that are probably willing to follow you, and then there's a diametric shift in dudes that didn't serve, and I'm going to say it like I feel like a lot of them are soft, or softer than their veteran breath.
They don't have such resolve. Don't have the resolve that was forged in fire.
Request permission to plead the fifth on that one.
Right? But then there's cats that we all serve with. They're like, that guy sucks too.
Yeah.
So kind of bringing this down to the final couple of topic points. What do you miss most from the service?
Camaraderie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I think that's probably close to being like the top 3 answer for everybody. Probably even top 2.
So during your time, especially if you're a grunt, right? So there's 98% of the job is sweeping sunshine off the sidewalks and cutting grass with scissors. But 2% of the time that you're in is fucking amazing. It's monumental. You see the best of humanity. And
even when you're doing that, even when you're doing that 98% of like you're mopping up the parking lot in a rainstorm because his Majesty has a wild hair up his fourth point of contact.
Right. Yeah. But you're doing it and you're in the suck together. And I think that a lot of
embrace the suck.
You don't really I think that it's selective memory. You don't really remember the shitty stuff. It's always like, I love it. It was awesome. And I think the longer that I'm out now, the more it's like, that wasn't so bad. But, you know, the day-to-day grind when you're in it is like, I would never do this. I'm going to start a shotgun. Like, I hate my life. But yeah, after you get out, the longer you get out, it's like, it was all sunshine and rainbows, you know?
Yeah. And see, and for me, it was kind of a little bit different too, because, you know, I, you know, was very, very late to the, I'm going somewhere with this. So everybody, before you start hating on me, if those watching at home, I was very late to the social media game. So I didn't get on.
Incredibly, my man.
Welcome.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I got on Facebook in like April or May of 2017 when I started working for a different job. And what was wonderful about it was like reconnecting with all of these people, and especially guys that like I went to basic training with, you know, that stayed in. And like I got a buddy of mine, he's a staff sergeant now. Another couple of guys are like 7s and 8s, and I got, you know, my old squad leader when I was in. He's now like the state sergeant major for operations for the recruiting for National Guard recruiting here in the state. So it's like, and when you have that reconnection, you know, and camaraderie is such a wonderful thing. You get that, you reach out to people like you haven't talked to in years, and it's like you never missed a beat. It's just like, it's right back there. And it's just like, dude, what we having that conversation 15 years ago? Like, okay, yeah, Silver Surfer from the movies is not as cool as Silver Surfer from the comic books. Shut your fucking face, blah. You know,
what was the name of that guy from Captain Planet? The one that shot the heart ring? Was it Mowgli or?
Even around dudes that were like, you know, obviously you just run into a random vet at a bar and you're like, let me buy you a beer and hear your story, man. Because it's a brotherhood, regardless. And of course, there's like, and I will say this, there's a hierarchy, and at the top is infantry.
Well, infantry, but
everybody else served it. Everybody else raised their right arm, and they're all pretty cool.
Yeah,
and I would go a little bit further to kind of qualify the statement, not just infantry, but infantry / older vets than yourself. Like anybody in World War II is badass. Anybody that was in Korea is bad. Anybody in Vietnam's like, I just want to hug them. Like, dude. You know?
Because they went through so much, and I think that there are so many more organizations out there now, and there's so much more light shed on the challenges that these dudes face, right? Yeah. And the ability to now, like, we're connecting here online, right? Like the ability to talk about shit.
And you know what's crazy about the Vietnam vets too is they were still, even though it was a heavily drafted war, the vast majority, like I think the statistic is like anywhere between 60-ish to 65% were still volunteer.
That's awesome.
You know what I'm saying? It was still a very heavily volunteer army, even during the time of Vietnam.
That's awesome.
Even with the draft. And these guys, you know, thinking that they were doing the right thing, they still got absolutely shit on when they came home. And it sucks to read the stories, man.
Oh yeah,
it really does.
And to reiterate a story that I've told before on here, and, you know, from the place that, you know, we all used to work at, when we first opened, there was an older guy that came in, and I noticed he had like one of those old school leather, like had a little leather strap on. It was a phone case he had on his belt, and he had the old school Rising Eagle warrant officer insignia on the freaking phone case. I'm like, hey, Chief, what's going on? He goes, how did you know that? I'm like, the eagle on your phone case? He goes, oh, good eye. And like, we just struck up a conversation and just shooting the shit. And he's like, you know, I told him I was an Afghanistan veteran. He obviously was in Vietnam. He's like, we're going to make sure that you guys don't go through the fucking bullshit that we went through.
Oh, dude.
And like, so like, that's why I say like Vietnam vets like are just have a very, very special, you know, I have a special kindredship with those guys. It's
oh
like,
yeah, they were the torchbearers, man. You know, like those cats. I'm just reaching over. Don't mind me. Those dudes were torchbearers, and they really, really blazed a path that made our lives significantly easier than what they had, right?
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, I guess like I'm not a parent. Kudos to you guys. I'm gonna dog and a cat, right? But like, you want to give your kids
every opportunity, every better chance than you had. Absolutely,
damn right.
And it's in a way like, you know, the Vietnam vets and all the older vets than us are kind of like our military dads because they're making sure that you had all that stuff. But I just love those stories, you know, like, you know, I had another guy that I served with. He was telling me a story about something called All American Day. And you have like all these old timers come in, and he was sitting there and he's serving lunch to this gentleman, and he's got some like regalia on, some patches and whatnot. And he's like, and the guy talks like he's still in 1940s, according to the story. He's like, "How many jumps you got there, paratrooper?"
Yeah, dude.
And he's like, 62, sir. And he goes, "I've only got 5, but mine all meant something." So he did like all 5 of the combat jumps. It's like, yeah.
Ooh, so
the old guy doesn't wear underwear because his fucking brass balls don't fit. All right.
Yep. Dude, he needs a wheelbarrow. So there's a thing called All American Week in the division, right? And every year it's like a Ranger rendezvous, but it's like the week that you celebrate the 82nd. And these cats go up and they travel, right? So they travel, they get there. And it's actually, ironically, I want to go back because it's right around Memorial Day. It's right around my birthday weekend as well. So during the week while you're in, it's trash. You're cleaning up. You're doing clean sweep every fucking day. You're like PT belt, PC, iPro, weed whacking. Like full kit weed whacking. Getting ready for All American Week. And then the week of, like parades and ceremonies and change of command and like just this asinine thing that after is like, I want to go to that. I want to bring a cooler beer and sit on the parade field and watch these idiots like fucking get a stroke and with their berets half cocked, so like they get a sunburn on one half of the face.
Oh yeah, I had that sunburn a couple times. Where it's just like this part of my face is all pale, but I have like
I never thought about that.
But I have a nice tan here, and I'm just like,
oh dude,
that must have been an active duty thing. Like, I mean, I wore my beret like. I don't
oh man, in the 82nd, there's a whole nother level of being an asshole with a beret because there's like the appropriate way to wear it with the insignia over the left eye,
mm-hmm.
And then there's the 82nd way where that thing is like way over. But it was interesting, like, you know, in the ceremonies, you don bayonets and like dudes would fall out, right? They've got a pointy object on the end of that musket. If they're falling, that thing's going somewhere.
You see everybody else is kind of holding there, just like trying to duck out of the way.
It's just like, I got to put the bend in my knees. I got to put the bend in my nose.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, like All American Week is serious business.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I want to go. So if y'all want to make a road trip,
that would be cool because you could go out there and also check out the museum. I'm a big nerd about museums and stuff. Like the Airborne and Special Ops Museum, I hear is pretty freaking dope.
It's cool. It is cool. And actually, while I was there, they were redoing it. And,
really?
They were redoing it. And while I was there, and there's a couple of my friends have bricks there, so it's cool.
Awesome. So I kind of already think I know the answer to would you do it again? Would you do all this all over again? And the answer is probably duh.
Yeah,
it's a resounding yes. Would I do it exactly the same? Absolutely not.
What would you change?
If I could have a deep-rooted conversation with my younger self a few weeks before joining, I'd probably number one, get myself into better physical condition before joining. Number two, have a clear path as to points that I needed to make and when in my career, and such as, making it a point to finish college sooner so I can go to OCS sooner. Maybe instead of standing in the pile of dudes to go to airborne, I would have stood in a pile to go to Ranger or SF. Or hell, I mean, you could like be a cook and go 18X after a while. But I think that if I could do anything over again, it would have been my present self, have a deep conversation with my previous self or my younger self before going in and just imparting a little bit more knowledge. Would I go back to infantry? Absolutely. I don't think that there's a better outfit or organization or cast of man than the infantry soldier.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Hell yeah.
It's a special breed. So to round this out and to kind of finish up. So last question I have for you, Greg, is what kind of, you've already had some really good nuggets of wisdom and advice and stuff, but what kind of intel would you give to future service members? Like, hey, what would you tell them to either be on the lookout for this or prepare for this? What would you pass along as your, like, hey, get off my lawn, but first listen to this first?
Yeah. Your advices.
I think that train your body as much as train your mind more than your body. I think that ultimately the key to success would be to have a clear path of where you want to go. Have yourself a glide path. Have yourself a trajectory. If you want to be an officer, here are the steps. Lay them out and do it. I think that too many dudes wing it, and some of them end up where they need to be. Some of the dudes end up where they want to be.
And some guys end up faking the funk on a nasty dunk.
And too many dudes fall short. Or dudes or chicks, whatever. Like, I think that ultimately find a mentor, have a conversation with that individual, keep your nose clean, because one bad night out isn't worth a career.
Yeah.
I think that would be it, man, is get in tremendous physical condition, get in better mental condition, because you're going to see some shit, and talk to somebody that's done it so you can do it better.
Yeah.
Those are good ones.
I think that's like really good advice. Hell yeah.
I feel bad for not writing that down like right now. I was too busy reaching for the last part of the interview. Right here. So I don't know if this is going to become a thing on this show, folks, because there are some people that choose the sober lifestyle or don't drink anymore, don't indulge. Yes. But we were shooting the shit the other night. Oh, one last thing I wanted to say. So you were talking about, you made a comment just now about, infantry guys and grunts being like that cast of, just that great cast of, how to cast a great man. So we were also, before the show, we were sitting here shooting the breeze, shooting the shit for a minute, and we were talking about the movie Starship Troopers in the book. Ranger Up, the brand Ranger Up, used to sell a shirt that had, on the front it had the cross rifles, but on the back of it, it had a passage from the book Starship Troopers talking about they're the ones that go in on H-hour, bloody, tired, muddy, disgusting, and they get the shit done. And I know I'm.
Would you like to know more?
Would you like to know more? I only hope that your audience is as big of a nerd as we are, because that's, again, a
go watch a movie.
It's a so cinematic excellence.
So go watch that. And then I was telling Alamo earlier this week. I watched a broadcast of the Black Rifle Coffee podcast.
Yeah.
And they interviewed the guy. So a few years ago was at a hostage situation and terrorist attack at that hotel in Kenya. And that British SAS went in there and was fucking pipe hitting bastards.
Did you hear they hired him?
His job, like it was like his job or something.
He was on training. He was on training, and he was just at the shop getting some groceries. Went out to his car, threw on his kit, threw on a little freaking monkey, a little ninja hood and stuff, and the balaclava, and just went in there and just smoke checked some assholes. And they were talking to him about it, and they kind of got off on the end of the interview talking about some crazy stuff, but they were like, he's like, do you know the movie Demolition Man? He's like, yeah. He goes, go watch that now with what's going on in the world. And I thought about it. I was like, whoa, shit. Holy crap. I was like, man, that's so different now. All right, guys, let's have a shot. Let's fuck.
All right, boys.
So, Greg, thank you again for being on. So, what's everybody drinking tonight? I want to know that. Greg, what are you drinking? What's with that little barrel? What the fuck is that? It's our only a small drinker.
Don't make fun of my drink there, Buckle.
No.
Don't make fun of my drink there, Buckle.
Listen, Patty's Day's coming up.
I got a little bit of knob go-to for whiskey, but as we were talking about earlier, some dudes drink whiskey because they like it. I drink it because
it's here.
It's there.
Yeah. I'm trying to slowly transition over to bourbon because I think I like bourbons a little bit more than whiskeys. I like James.
And you know that is more than I do. Like there's whiskey, bourbon, rye, scotch, all that bullshit. Yeah. Like it's all the same.
I got friends of mine that have done the World of Beer tour. That's like 500 beers. They've done the World of Beer tour like a couple of times, and I'm like, I'm not a beer drinker. I don't care. Really? Like I told you guys, if I order a drink and I'm hanging around guys like this, I'm like, I tell the waitress, I'm like, take the freaking umbrella out of that shit before you bring it over, or I'll never hear the end of it with these clowns. And she's like, exactly. So
nice umbrella in the drink.
Yeah. Lame-o. So I got a bottle of imported Cuban rum that a friend of mine gave me. Like it's even got the damn tax stamp on and stuff. Like it is legit awesome. Imported.
Screwball.
So Greg, I'm gonna let you make the toast, man. You tell us you make the toast, and
well, thank you for the honor, gentlemen. I just really, 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 truly wanted to say thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing. Conveying the message out there that it's a hard job what you guys are doing. You're putting out there the message that it is a hard transition, and guys are making it, and we can all do it better if we do it together. So thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Cheers, boys. Woohoo! That's a birdie.
Yummy.
Yeah, baby. All right. I'm probably going to get stupid real quick. So, Alamo, let's wrap this show up. So, Greg, thanks again, man. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. And, you guys are doing tremendous work. Keep it up.
Good up. Good up, Mako.
I'm good. Cynthia, I didn't say hi earlier, by the way. Hello, sweetheart. Love to see you again on the show. So thank you for ending the comments. But Greg, again, man, thank you. Have a good night, man. We'll catch up with you in a minute, and we're gonna wrap this up and
indeed,
finish it up. So this is already late. It's like 10:30. This is a good one. So
this is a good one, yeah,
man. A lot of good stuff. So Greg, again, appreciate it, brother.
All right, boys,
and we'll reach out to you in a minute. So, as we do with every show, we're going to kind of give you a little bit of background, talk about what we do. So as we mentioned earlier, we do this podcast. It's a labor of love for us.
Damn right.
We do this because we found out that a friend of ours, and since then we found out that others have unfortunately chose to solve a temporary problem with a permanent solution. And that's not what we want people to do. Okay.
Just in the course of the first season and the first couple episodes of this season. Yeah. It's
about this right here. Good night, Cynthia. We love you. Thank you for watching again. But 22 a day is a lot, and it sucks a lot worse when it's people that you know. So our mission is to help the veteran community. We want to stop suicide, but we want to help the veteran community as well as do that. So in the process of coming up with the show, we were like, what can we pass on to people to help keep them going when things are getting a little bit rough? So we came up with the Bros Code. It's a little mantra that we kind of remind ourselves of every time we're on the show, and we're going to share it every time.
Damn right.
And the reason why you heard us you saw us giggling or whatnot is when Greg said be tenacious.
Tenacity.
It's like, tenacity. It's like, good plug. So remembering the word bros, BROS, the first one B is be tenacious. And like Greg said, being tenacious, showing up on time, being in the right place, right time, and just, good attitude. That's a great way to be tenacious. There's other ways to do it too, and that's just not giving up, not quitting, doing everything you can to the fullest of your ability, and then trying to surpass that if you can.
Damn right.
And that's very, very important. That rum is hitting me so good right now. I got a nice little burn going on. It's like, oh shit. R, refuse to surrender. Okay. When things happen, as we've heard several times with Greg's story, there's things that kind of happened here, happened there. He didn't give up. He kept going, and he kept trying to, improve himself and better himself in a situation, so trying to get out there and, be a upstanding citizen, even though he got out of the service before he wanted to. And, that's important,
That's right, baby.
When things, sometimes you got to shift your weight, you got to move your feet a little bit. You got to, kind of alter the course of, the path that you're on. And that's fine. Things can happen. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay. Obliterate your obstacles. Sometimes there's things in your way. Sometimes you need to skirt around them. Sometimes you need to go over them. You need to dig under them. Sometimes you need some Bangalores and some C4 and just blow that shit to smithereens. That's okay. As long as you can stay on the path to hitting the OBJ, hitting that X, hitting that objective, that's what the goal is. And that can be applied to anything. It can be applied to your personal life, your professional life, finishing school, relationships. I mean, that it's kind of universal. So, apply when needed and when necessary. So the most important part of our mantra is S, and that's seek out a friend in a time of need. We started off the show last week. We were talking about Alamo's good friend Ward, who we discussed in an episode last season during the holiday episode, which was episode 21.
Yeah.
And, it's funny, hearing stories like this, and we're talking to Greg and Brent last week, you kind of get vested into these stories. And especially like with Alamo, hearing the stories that he said about the guys he served with, you kind of get to know them a little bit in the stories of others. And that's important, especially when things like this happen, their memory lives on. I was telling my daughter, she was kind of sad because she was missing some family members. And I was like, I said, sweetie, they may have died, they may have been gone, but as long as you keep them alive right here, they're never going to die. And that's important, as long as you keep the memories alive and think happy thoughts. And that's very, very crucial to the things going on in our lives. So, when you kind of get stuck in a rut, you get to having those, those thoughts of, not good things and whatnot, you need to reach out to us, reach out to your friends, people that you served with. I know if I ever have a problem, I can call this guy right here. We can talk on the phone, we can figure it out. And we've done that. There's been several times that we've called each other in the middle of the night and just been like, hey man, let's talk. And we've stayed up and kind of shot the breeze, and it's like, okay, we're good. I'll talk to you later, man. I love you.
Stretching out to like the wee hours too, so it happens.
It's so late. It's early. It's like dark early in the morning. But that being said, there's resources available. If you've got, if you're still in contact with people you served with, reach out to them, talk to them, family members, whatever the case may be. In the event that those are not viable options, there's always the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Okay, you can call us at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. And, they will have somebody there to help you and discuss what needs to be talked about, kind of talk you through things and help you out as best they can. And that is a resource that is always available. So please do not hesitate to use that. Okay. So I'm going to quickly turn it over to my co-host and cohort here. He's going to plug all the technical stuff because that's his end piece. So
yeah. So as always, guys, if you like what you see here, if you like the content that we're bringing you and you want more of it, make sure you like, share, subscribe to Everything Battle Bros. I had a little bit of a burp there. Everything Battle Bros, to make sure that, number one, you get the YouTube algorithm recognizing us and spreading our word out there. And make sure you write a comment down in the comment section below and like that video that you see right there on the UpTub, because there's only one way we'll get recognized. And you got to let the algorithm know you like what you see. Also, if you want to catch us on the audio platforms, you can catch us on Spotify, You can catch us on Anchor. You can catch us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, as well as, I believe, Radio Public, Overcast, and
pretty much any permutation of the word cast.
I'm going to get all of those by heart, damn it, at some point.
You're fine.
Also, if you want to catch us on the social medias, you can catch us at Facebook on facebook.com/battlebros.podcast.
Hey, Alamo, quick question. Do we have one of those, what do you call this thing with the Facebook thing is on? What is that called? Little, the label, whatever the hell.
Freaking, I don't know.
I know. I just totally defunct your derailed. Defunct. You're just like your brain just went and halt.
It's just like
can you make one up real quick for our Gmail?
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. Oh, speaking of emails, you guys, by the way, also via the Facebook, guess what? Battle Bros, we also have a WhatsApp. Yes, you can contact us via WhatsApp through the Facebook app as well. And if you want to catch us on the Insta, you can catch us at BattleBros_podcast. So look for us anywhere you find on the social medias and any.
It's not going to take much. You'll find us. Yeah, it's not going to take much. You'll find it. So we'll have one of those. We'll have one of those little tail caps at the end for our email. If you want to reach out to us, we'll start broadcasting that next week.
Yes,
please feel free to reach out to us. If you have any commentary and feedback, we're at the point now where we'd love to hear back from everybody.
Damn, Skippy.
We do have the private chat going on with the show. Please feel free to engage in that. We want to hear questions and comments from.
We do like hearing cusses.
We like hearing cusses too. I like how your sister was on here calling you a little shit because
I know it's amazing.
Like, but we'll post a Gmail next episode. We have a Gmail account now that's for the show.
Yes, we will.
So
we
you
will
can get a hold of us. So we don't exactly know what's going on next week yet. We're going to play a little bit closer by the seat of our pants and close to the vest this season. So we're just going to sign off for now. So
again, but have no worries, everybody. We are doing research always. And we will be bringing you some good content.
We got primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency plans. We have a PACE plan.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you again for watching. Special thanks and shout out to Greg for joining us on the show. It was a great interview.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad we came up with this idea. This is fantastic. I'm really enjoying this. We will still also intermingle some topic-based shows in there as well. But until the next time, this has been episode 026, V.I.P. installment number 2 of the veteran interview panel with Greg. And this has been the Battle Bros podcast with Mac and Alamo. We want to say thank you for joining us. Thanks for watching. We love all of you guys. We want to see you back next week. And until then, we hope you all stay safe. Be careful out there. And love your friends. Love others.
Battle Bros out.
Catch y'all later.